Welcome to the Sharpe Crew. So happy to have you all with us this glorious lunchtime. Yes, a lunchtime panel chat in the middle of the week. It's hump day. What a better way to do a hump day than with the three of us. Isn't that amazing? I have with me, of course, the multi-talented Charla Burnett. How are you?
Doing well, Larry. How are you?
Great. And the returning champion, the dragon of the Southern Tier, Michael Vass. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Larry. Good to be with everybody. It's going to be a fun Wednesday.
And, you know, the thing I want to talk about today, which I know we've talked about a lot recently. I mean, it's been in the news, and I try, boy, have I failed at this one. I have tried to keep shifting topics so I'm not on the same topic often. But, man, the migrant thing keeps popping up again and again and again. This has got to be my fourth show on it or more in the past month or two. It just keeps popping up. And I think the biggest issue that's happening is here in New York City. Recently, there has been a ruling in New York. I think it's New York State. I think it's a state that says that within New York City, the New York City law that has a right to shelter, the right to shelter is not for anyone except New Yorkers. And that was not clear before. That was not, clear in the past. Now, as the judge says, no, does not matter, which means now the city should not be using taxpayer dollars in this case to then house migrants, only New York City homeless. That is what's supposed to happen now. But the reverse has been happening. Recently, a congressperson at Staten Island has shown that New York City has made deals with homeless shelters to remove homeless people to put in migrants. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, and it's not because they care about homeless and migrant people. It's because there's more money in the federal system, right? The migrant industrial complex is much more lucrative when it's federal money than when it's state money. Big deals happening. Charlotte, you deal with this community. Tell me what's going on here.
I'm interested to learn exactly what program of federal funding that you claim is specifically targeted to helping to house undocumented migrants.
Yeah, great. It is not a program. It's cash being sent directly to the state. Yeah. So the state so I guess depends how you see it. I guess it could be considered state money. I guess if you look at it that way, it could be considered state money. I guess because the state is spending it, but the money the grant is coming from the federal government. So it's a good point. I don't know if you would officially call that state money or not.
Well, I've never heard of state or federal funding that specifically is focused on helping to house undocumented migrants. I'm unaware of that federal funding.
Yeah, it was if I remember, it was a $20 billion, if I remember right, it was a $20 billion grant. I'll just check. I don't know if they called it a grant.
The grant,
the way the grant geared towards homelessness, or was it a grant geared towards migrants?
It's towards homelessness, but it's being used, like many of the grants, it's the way it's being used because it goes in under one title and then it's applied a different way. The easiest way for the common person to think about it, it's the same as the Social Security slush fund. We go and put the money in and then we reapply the money to every other program, even though the money was allocated for one specific purpose. It's the same thing that's happening here. The money's
it's since the Clinton years, when Clinton took basically the money that was supposed to go to help people who are poverty, and turned it into block grants to states. So now the money doesn't go to the individuals. The block grants go, and then people do it for what they use it for, whatever they want in slush funds.
Yeah, so states who say that they have larger homeless populations receive more money, but there is no distinction within these homeless shelters between migrants and citizens.
No.
But there is an issue happening where a lot of the citizens in New York are being displaced because there is a mass influx of migrants over the last year.
Well, let's clarify. Let's clarify.
The rhetoric is clear.
Well, I want to clarify. The homeless shelters do distinguish and discriminate between American citizens and illegal aliens, and let's call them what they are, illegal aliens. They are not migrants. They
They're
are not
undocumented.
asylum seekers. Those are two very different things. They
They're
are not legally in America. These are criminals.
classified as asylum seekers if they have applied.
No,
for asylum.
no, because they didn't go
Across
through the
New York,
vetting
you have to
process.
prove you've applied for asylum.
No, they didn't go through the
Please,
proper vetting
guys,
process,
let's
which would
not
allow them to
fight-
take
let's
2
not
years.
fight over this. Here's the reality. The reality is some of them have not applied for asylum. Some of them have. Those who've applied for asylum are technically legal.
The New York Times published on the 23rd that it's 60,000 migrants who have applied for asylum in New York City.
Here we go.
The asylum process takes
Technically-
2 years of vetting, and you have to be in another nation before you
Asylum
come in.
process takes way more than 2 years for vetting.
It does.
No, it can take
I
more.
used
It's
to
at
do the
least
vetting
8,
process for asylum seekers in refugee camps and in the United States. So I can
And
take
it can-
way longer. I have asylum seekers that
That's
I
fine.
met and apply for asylum over 10 years ago and still have not.
I understand that. And the process may be wrong, but the way it is set is for 2 years for asylum seeking. You are not to enter the new nation, and you're going to the next closest nation. So unless everyone's coming for asylum out of Canada or Mexico, they're not seeking
Hold on,
asylum.
Michael, I got to be clear on this. You're off on this one. That was true under Trump. Trump put in that I forgot the name of the law. The law that said you had to be at the closest country to your nation.
That was always the case.
No.
But no, it was not. You're incorrect. That was prior to Trump. That was not the case. And since Trump, Biden has rescinded that. So that was what you're just saying was only true during the Trump administration and only a certain part of the Trump administration. Before and after that, you can come to our country, apply for asylum, and legally be here because our system is so insanely broken. But they
Mexico
are
and
actually
Canada
legal.
are the same. Mexico and Canada are the same.
Yep.
You can go
Correct.
there and apply for asylum at any point. You can get
Absolutely.
on a plane and land and apply for asylum as soon as you're in the airport. Most airports have asylum offices within them so that you can apply directly as soon as you land.
You're talking about the specific time when Trump changed that rule. Prior to that and after that, that is no longer the case. They are officially, they are legal. It's just
Which
a
caused the
terrible,
migrant
broken
crisis
system.
in Mexico, because then all of a sudden Mexico is seeing them stay there in Mexico to receive their asylum, which is why they have massive.
That's what it was
refugee camps right
called. The
Stay in Mexico program.
Stay in Mexico program. Thank you, Charla. That was the name of I don't know if that was the name of the law, but everyone called
It was.
the Stay in Mexico plan, and that was only under Trump. After that, that's no longer the case anymore. So I don't mean to be a nudge, Mike, but I'm just telling you the truth. It has changed.
There's a lot of nuances to this, and there are parts of it that have actually been reactivated under the Biden administration. So there's a lot to this. It's constantly changing because the Biden administration has reactivated parts of stay in
Migrant
Mexico.
law is the most complicated law, second
100%.
to tax law.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So,
Which is why so many people talk about it. Go
I
ahead.
want to get to the more important piece, though. Whether we call
Okay.
them migrants, illegal immigrants, undocumented workers, I try to call them migrants because it's a generic term that covers all of them. That's why I try to use that term.
All
as
of them,
generic.
whether they're asylum seekers, whether they come
Correct.
here
That's
for
why I'm
better
saying
work
migrants,
opportunities, whether they
'cause it
come here for
covers everybody.
pleasure, all migrants.
That's okay. You guys can use that, and I'll call them criminals and illegal aliens as
Not
they
everyone
are.
to be in the United States undocumented.
All I'm saying is
not
it's a
illegal.
generic term. It
I
includes
understand.
all of them.
I
It's
understand.
not a crime to
So,
be in the United
can
States
we-
undocumented.
Can we talk about
Yes, sir.
what we're going to do
No,
about
it's
it
not.
versus how we title them?
Sure. Let's go on.
So
But it's not.
let's talk about that versus how what we call them. How we're going to deal with it? Because without question, whether you are happy about migrants coming, unhappy, like this, like that, either way, whatever you feel, it's a problem across our country. And we're seeing it in New York City, obviously, because I live here, but it's not just New York City. It's a problem all over the place. And my biggest issue is it isn't only a problem for the cities. It's a problem for the individual migrants. It's a problem for the communities who can't handle them. It's a problem for the people who are going to get the migrants when they leave the cities. It's a problem for a lot of people. This is not working well at all.
I do think, though, that the migrant crisis that's happening in New York City right now is unique. And it's unique for a couple of reasons. There's a lot of misinformation about urban blue states and their policies on accepting asylum seekers or undocumented individuals and providing them with services. And this disinformation is often spread by right-wing groups over the internet and across the borders. We do know that there have been Republicans who have given money to migrants in other countries to come here and to also like support a system of migration so that they can galvanize people for their own platform.
Who?
Who
did that?
There have been loads and loads of
Name one.
particularly Texas. Hold on. We can continue.
I like Charlotte's getting conspiracy on me. I like this. This is good. Usually I got Michael on the conspiracy side. Now I got Charlotte.
I don't do conspiracies, but yeah. But I would also push back. New York's not unique. I mean, we see the same thing happening in Chicago. We see it throughout California, Arizona, Mexico, New Mexico, Florida. There's many states that are having these problems that are similar to what's happening in New York City and throughout New York State. So to say it's unique, we know that Chicago's been overwhelmed. It only took 8,000 illegal aliens to overwhelm the system in Chicago. We're seeing the same thing in Baltimore. We're seeing it in, again, throughout all of California, Arizona, Mexico, New Mexico, Texas. So I don't see how New York is unique.
I feel like there is something special about New York. And the reason why I'll say it is because New York has been an open sanctuary city, an aggressively open sanctuary city for decades, if not centuries. It's been a very much sanctuary city for a long time. But my problem is we've always been able to, in the past, handle whatever came, right? It didn't destroy the city. Whatever amount came, we could handle. Now, so many are coming that we can't handle it, right? So that means either our city infrastructure has broken down, which I believe that's true also, right? Our city infrastructure has broken down, and at the same time, massive amount of migrants, and the city's in trouble financially. So all three of these things together are creating a perfect storm. If we had taken and AOC brought this up, and I am very rarely on AOC's side, but every once in a while she has the right take. And in this one, she's correct. She says, look, we've taken more during the Ellis Island times. That's accurate. That's an accurate statement. The problem is back then we had a plan and we could absorb them. Now we don't have a plan. There is no Ellis Island now to take them. There's no way of controlling it. That's
why should New York be solely responsible for that? Why should large urban blue states be solely responsible for the reallocating?
Because I'll tell you why. Because New York City is begging, at not the people necessarily, but the government for sure, is begging for these migrants. If you're going to sit there and say, come here, we want you, come on in, oh my God, we're a sanctuary state, we want you. If you're going to say that and publicly announce that, regardless of what conspiracies may or may not be going on, New York City has been openly saying that for decades. If I'm going to say, come into my house, Charlotte, anyone else come to my house, I better have some food there for them. I better have a place for them to stay. I'm the one saying, please come into my house. I want you in my house. Come on in. I think that's the reason why our government has been saying this for decades.
No, and I agree with you. And that's what I said. It's like, but between the politicians who say go there, but as soon as one politician says, yes, we will help support migrants, there are right-wing political groups who spread that information and continue to tell migrants,
No. With
refugee camps who told me that they were paid to send people and move people from Latin America and the Caribbean to the United States. And it was the GOP who said that was the Democratic Party. At this point, it doesn't matter if it's the Republican or the Democratic Party because they both benefit from this migrant crisis and hysteria. The problem is that they are actually using this to discredit our system for their own political agenda. When the reality actually is if we had a system that was optimized our migrants like registration program, we could redistribute them more equally across the country so no one city has to face this burden and exacerbate homeless crisis.
Well, 2 points to that. One, unless you're classifying organizations like the NGO, the Red Cross, which have been using taxpayer money to be able to go into foreign nations and tell them the pathways to entering the United States illegally in the most easiest way possible. Unless you're classifying them as right wing, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think that any of those organizations tell
that is a fact.
Illegally cross borders. They're usually used as pawns to secure.
No. The Red Cross is actively doing this. It was reported in March of 2023 that they are actively using their grants from the federal government to be able to give documentation, and pathways to the illegal aliens to enter the United States illegally. That's a fact. It's not a question. It's not in dispute. But let's go
again,
further.
You don't understand what illegal versus legal is, apparently, when we discuss migration. So what you assume is
no authorization to be into the nation. You do not have authorization or documentation to enter the United States. The people who are walking across Arizona. Wait a minute. You're asking me a question. I'm trying to clarify. So the people who are walking, the coyotes who are driving people up to the gates that have been welded open in Arizona, that are walking through in the thousands, that is an illegal alien. That is a crime. So that's what I'm talking about when I define that. But I wanted to go on, and there was a second point that you were bringing up, but you threw me off.
So let me walk down an important road here, though, and that is, this is a problem. Our laws are screwed up. Should we then, this is an opinion question here, should we then change our laws? In other words, there are people who believe that our asylum laws were good during the Cold War. Right? It would help the communist people come over and free them from communism, right? That was supposedly what they were supposed to be for the asylum laws back then. So there's some people saying these asylum laws are now outdated. There should be no such thing as asylum laws anymore, right? That should go away. We should not have any asylum laws. And unless you're here to work, then it's illegal, or family, right? It's illegal to come here. Is that something? Should we get rid of our asylum laws? Should that not be a thing?
Actually, let me follow up, because I remember what I was going to say, and it does kind of apply to what you're speaking about now. So we have this. The problem is that we have no focal point. We don't have an Ellis Island to draw everyone into, and so that's been making this much more difficult. And we are already seeing that people are being dispersed across the nation from those focal points, except nobody wants them. We've seen that with the Biden administration shipping children in the middle of the night into Tennessee, into New York, across this nation, because they have overwhelmed the system. And now we see that the mayor of New York is trying to convince Kathy Hochul and all the other 60 counties or 50 counties in New York State to accept the illegal alien overburden, and the states have declared emergencies and have gone to court to prevent this from happening. You can only have an asylum system. The only way we can have this, and AOC is correct, we need a plan. We need a focal point. We need a focal point for everyone to come in, to be recognized, documented, and addressed, and then we can disperse them properly. Without doing all of these steps, we're getting what we have right now. Several states saying they're sanctuary states, which is illegal, that they're sanctuary cities, which is illegal. They violate federal state codes. And that creates the chaos that we have right now, which is resulting in higher cost to the taxpayer, more crime, and even the migrants are upset with this. Legal migrants, I'm talking about.
Well, I got two things, if I could touch that. One is I'm not against sanctuary anything. I think sanctuary states and cities are awesome. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Still happy with it. And not just for migrants. How about for the Second Amendment? How about for all types of things that people locally want? I'm okay with sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, sanctuary whatever. Local people should decide what they want locally. I don't mind. And they should take whatever benefits or repercussions come from them being sanctuary states or sanctuary cities. No worries.
Keyword repercussion.
Say again?
Keyword repercussion.
Sometimes that will be true. People do make mistakes, and that's fine. They should pay for it. No worries on that whatsoever. Charlotte, go ahead. Your head was nodding. I'm sorry. I cut you off. Charlotte, did I lose you?
Yeah. So I think, no, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yep.
Just want to make sure. So specifically, when AOC is talking about having a point place, there are point places all over the border, all over, and every airport is a point place for migration. And there are offices there to handle migrant cases. The issue that we have out of any high income, fully developed nation, we have the slowest migration process of any developed nation. It takes much longer for someone to go legally through those pathways than it is for them to potentially lose their life trying to get to the United States illegally or undocumented. In the United States, it is actually not illegal. It is not a crime to be in the United States undocumented. It is a civil infraction. These are very, very key things. So if you're waiting at the border of some country, trying to get into the United States for 3, 4, 5 years, let's talk about the lottery system and how ineffective that is. You know,
Yep.
there
Good
are
point.
hundreds of thousands of people who have applied since 2017 for the
Okay.
lottery system, and only 50,000 people have actually been able to get into the lottery system.
Okay.
These are facts. I just looked them up.
Yeah, I don't care what the problem is.
For the other issue that this kind of bottleneck of migration creates are these camps. And in these camps, we have increased crime because people are there to take advantage of the women and children and other migrants who are not able to defend themselves because they have no policing system. They have no ability to seek out medical care. It creates a health issue, particularly in the wake of COVID-19. We need to be more aware that as climate changes, so are the likelihood that we're going to experience bigger, greater pandemics, and these camps become a bed, a hot spot for illness.
Can I ask
And
a
so
question?
we're talking about a public health crisis. And all of the other research shows that for a thriving economy, we need migration. We need it. So for us, we're actually harming our economy. And we've seen this now when we don't have people to go out into the fields to help us with low skilled labor, that, you know, we're just essentially throwing out all of these goods that can't be prepared if we had the migrants that we needed. And
Okay,
we've also seen a huge change and shift in the mindset of farmers and people who live in rural areas towards migration and being closer and more affiliated with the left.
Okay, so we're going to ask a question here, but we already have programs for migrant farmers and migrant farm workers. So we've been dealing with that, and we can adjust that. That's fine, but we already know that that's something we're dealing with. If migrants were so wonderful and beneficial and necessary to our country, you would see cash overflowing in New York City, in all of California, Portland, Chicago. We've seen them, but they're not.
And they can't have
Wait
a minute.
Hold on, guys. Hold on 1 second. Michael, they are in the black market.
I'm not saying they're not.
Is flowing everywhere in the black market. I see it.
I know. I understand. I'm not talking about the sex slavery. I'm not talking about the child labor. I'm not talking about that aspect, which are crimes.
Businesses under the table, like migrants and immigrants are more likely to open a business than U.S. citizens are that were born here, and so they're more likely to employ U.S. citizens than U.S. citizens are.
Okay, so how many new businesses are created in New York City right now? They're not getting created right now. We have $12 billion that we're planning to spend on these illegal aliens. We're kicking people out of homeless shelters, and we're kicking moms and kids off of programs.
$12 billion on homelessness. We don't.
No. We're dealing with this is because of illegal aliens, not because of homelessness. Homelessness we already had when we had a handle on that. Not a great handle on it, but we had a handle. It's the migrants.
New Yorkers. How do you say you have that on handle?
I'm not saying it. That's Eric Adams who's saying it. That's the government of New York State saying that. But let me also ask a very important question, because you pose this in a very emotional manner, which is, I think, unfair. You gave us the plight of these migrants. Oh, isn't it so terrible that they're going through X, Y, and Z? Therefore, we have an obligation. My question is, why do I have an obligation for their actions that I have nothing to do with? I don't care what they do. I don't care what happens in their country. I don't care why they're leaving. There's a process to come into America, which they're violating. And they are then imposing a burden on me and every other taxpayer, every other American, in both our services and our costs, because they have entered our nation illegally, and they are not a benefit.
They do take out. There is a zero net weight on what they take from the system versus what they give.
No, there isn't.
Yes,
That's
it is.
actually incorrect. There have been many studies on this.
Hold on, guys.
It costs about $100 billion a year.
Hold on. I'm talking about the issue, right, that we have now. And I think, Charla, I think I would agree with you completely in the past. But at this moment in time, particularly in New York, migrants are right now a burden.
Right. And what we were talking about, that is like a very specific case study.
And that's what I'm talking about.
And that issue that has to do, I think the main driver of that is the fact that there are people saying, go to New York, whether it's Democrat or Republican, everyone's saying, go to New York. That is an issue. for New Yorkers, and it's impacting them in a very specific way. If we had valid pathways to citizenship, that wouldn't even be an issue. This is a self-created crisis that our government has created for the citizens of New York City.
I would agree with that. I think we have done that. I think our laws are vague. I think our laws are vague. Even in New York City, I think we have people who could easily be called illegal or not illegal, undocumented or documented, fair or not. And I think if we had a system that would be better, it would work. But I don't see us doing it. I'll go back to and let me bring up a couple of these if I could. Hold on. There is a bunch of comments here, and some of them are really on point. If I could bring a couple of them up.
I can only imagine.
Joel says every president for decades have begged Congress to fix immigration law. And I agree. And that's my point, right? I'm going to go down my conspiracy theory, right? Charla gave us one. I'm going to give you one too. And that is they don't want to fix this problem. They want to keep fighting over it. They know the laws are broken. They know the system is broken, right? Republicans and Democrats have both in the last 20 years controlled all three parts of the government. Either all Republicans or all Democrats, either one of them, if they chose to, could have fixed this problem. And in both cases, neither party did. Neither party repaired this or fixed this system. So my piece is, I think they know it's screwed up and don't care. They want to fight over it, and they don't care if we fight amongst ourselves, right? Migrants are, to your point, Charla, a very important part of America, of our economy, of our culture. They are critical. And you're also right, Michael. We can't just let them walk in the door. It's not going to work. We have to have some kind of plan. They walk in the door, and now things are starting to fail horribly. And I just thought that was an important piece that I wanted to.
No, you're right. You're right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to. You're right. It is a problem that we've seen on left and right, and I blame all sides about the fact that we haven't addressed this. 100%. And actually, focused on it and actually addressed it. And we've seen supermajorities for Democrats most recently. We've seen majorities for Republicans recently, where they could have addressed this, but they're afraid of the public backlash from the news media that's going to attack people on a moral basis, like what we were talking about just before. Oh, you should do this because that someone else feels like you should do it, which again is going to the whole feelings thing. It's not our problem. And every politician's afraid to say it's not our problem because some amount of illegal aliens, some amount of migration is always going to upset someone.
Their rhetoric is exactly that. All the left says is all migrants are perfect and wonderful and there's no traffic and nothing's wrong. All the right says is everyone coming over is killing us, bringing fentanyl, and they're all murderers.
I don't think either of us said that.
Run back and forth. Neither of those is true. They're just human beings coming across the border. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, like every other group of people on every other part of the planet, right? That's the reality of it. But I think rhetoric has been very aggressive on both sides. I think actually doing something is nothing, and I think it's on purpose.
So I just want to clarify a point is I've never thought that migrants should just be let in without any documentation. I think they all should be documented. Because it should be just that easy. It should be you come, you ask for your visa, they give you an ID, and you have to register where you're living so that they know where you are. So if you do violate one of our laws, you are no longer welcome in our country. I think that is a pretty basic, conversation starter that everybody can agree on, right? But the issue is that we don't do that, and we make it illegal for them to come here, which is how the illicit trades get involved, and then they can be smuggling and human trafficking people and making money off of it, or they can be pushing them into migrant camps or detention centers where then again they can profit and make money off of it. So essentially we've just allowed these systems to build up enterprises to make money off of human suffering, and that is absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
People have to suffer because they're pursuing their happiness, which is a basic tenet of,
American citizens, not other nations.
All migrants at one point.
It's not a tenet of any other country. That isn't a tenet of any other country. That's an American citizen
more countries take more migrants than we do per capita.
I don't care what the other countries do. I don't care. And let them, and look at the problems they have had because of it. I don't want those problems. Let them have that problem.
You said
Well,
I provided you with an emotional argument for this, but I don't think that I had at all. I thought I was pretty
I
much
do.
talking about logic because it's a public health crisis.
No,
We're
no,
not
that's a,
protecting ourselves by building
Okay.
fences.
no, it's an emotional
We're
argument
making
because you're
fences
talking
that
about
are sick and
women.
hating us.
Women.
That means that eventually we will fall because that
Women.
wall cannot be built up to hold back everyone else outside the United States.
Walls are effective in 127 countries around. Wait a minute, let me respond. The walls are effective in 127 countries out of the world, of which there are something like 146 nations in the world. So walls are a different subject. We can get into that if you want. But what we're talking about is other countries' problems are not inherently an obligation for us to take care of or to take care of their people. So to tell me and to say the basis of the argument is they have a problem isn't my problem. I don't care if England is taking in 60, they had over 100. Let's go on. Okay.
Part number one I got to bring up is sometimes it is our problem. If we're bombing Syria or Iraq and making these countries unstable, right, destabilize these countries because of our foreign policy, and then there's a bunch of Syrian and Iraqi immigrants, that's kind of our fault. We probably shouldn't destabilize their countries, right?
Iraq is very
Our
different.
gun companies in the United States are selling them arms, and we're destabilizing women and children.
No, they were already destabilized. They were already destabilized long before we were there, and there are many countries that are bombing in there because we don't see the Russians in there, Iran's in there, we're in there, Germany, EU. There are many nations that are involved in that.
Syria, literally, we engaged Russian forces
I know
in
that.
Syria.
I know
So
that.
it's not. Yes. So we're doing the one that we're doing the bombing. So point one
Everyone's
is,
doing the bombing.
It's not that does again to your point. I don't care what everyone else is doing. What I'm saying is we are part of that, and we shouldn't be. So I don't think it's so black and white to say I don't care what they're doing if we're part of that. If we're basically saying South American countries, if you want our assistance, we're going to bribe you. You have to keep our same war on drug laws and rules in South American countries because we decide otherwise we're not going to help you, or we're going to punish you, or we're going to embargo you, or we're going to weaponize the dollar against you in any way possible to make it where they kind of have to just do what we say. We've done that across South and Central America, also causing problems. So it isn't as black and white as they're screwed up. Who cares? But there's a second piece too. Charla's correct. This country cannot grow and survive without some form of immigration. We need it, or we're going to struggle. We have to have it. So if we don't have a decent way of doing it, we're going to have a problem. Because it is our problem by default because we need them and because we are helping with destabilization. You're right, Mike. It's not just us. That's true. But it is us. It should be not us at all.
Enjoy
That's a different question.
The minerals from Africa that displace and literally enslave children.
Talk to China about that. They made the deal on that.
Our phones and our computers and our privilege, and then turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to help you." Well, that's going to come back to bite us in the ass one day because one day we're going to need help too. And they're
I agree with that, except China's already made those deals over the last 2 decades, starting under the Obama administration.
Purchasers of those goods, we utilize that with the
money. I understand that.
We benefit from it.
That's what BRICS is all about.
We don't have any impact on anyone else's life when we have the largest military in the world, when we have the largest reach of any government. We impact everyone else's world on a daily basis. When you're outside the United States, they literally watch our news.
Yeah.
They do everything about American society. We know nothing about theirs. Because
that's not exactly correct.
And say, oh, well, it's not our fault that they're coming here. Screw them. They need to take care of themselves. But yet we're benefiting from their suffering and exploitation. On
so what?
Basis.
Yes, we're benefiting, but yes, they can make a better nation for themselves. That's on them. That is not my obligation. That is not my obligation. What?
You just whatted that? That was not the proper response.
No, that's not the friendly. That isn't a friendly, nice response. It's an accurate response, and it's a true, realistic response. That's not my problem. Oh, Africa. Yes, Africa is a problem. It is poverty-ridden. There are many reasons going back centuries on why that is the case.
You act like a victim when somebody comes here and bombs us. or terrorizes us and
We
becomes
are victims when
terrorists.
they bomb us.
Oh, that
We are
had nothing to
victims.
do with us. We didn't create that situation in which bred terrorism.
Excuse me, we have nothing to do with.
Perspective, though.
Are you saying that?
Down another
Wait a
road.
minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
terrorism.
we have a
We're
topic-
talking about
we have
terrorism.
our topic for next week, then, don't we?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so-
terrorism is the way that the Ayatollah of Iran considers Islam and is therefore funding global terror is not because of the United States. We did not give him the interpretation of the Quran that he is using to oppress women
hold on.
and children.
That's another show, but
Yeah,
you're
that's
right. We
another
did not give him
show.
interpretation.
She brought it up.
We just made sure he was in charge to take care over the country. That's all. But no, right. We did
No,
not,
no,
that's
but
all we did.
yes, we'll
We
go
just
on
made
to
sure
it.
He was in charge. But no, we did not give him the interpretation. That's accurate. Yes. So let me walk down some of these comments here. If I can go here. Joel's on your side, Mike. He says illegal aliens. The attempt to change the term to migrant is an attempt to legitimize it. That
Yes.
actually wasn't my attempt, Joel. My attempt was to deal with all the different types of people who was here. My goal of using migrant wasn't to legitimize anything, but I see where you go with that. But that was not my goal. My goal was to say some of them are here illegally, some aren't, some are documented, some aren't. This is to say here, because I'm also assuming that some of the people who are applying for asylum are honest asylum seekers, and some are full of crap. I think some are. I think both. I think they're humans, and some are lying, and some aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted to go migrant to say that was my reason for using the word migrant. It encompasses all of the people who are here struggling right now, those who are real and those who are not actual asylum seekers. That's why I used it. So just for clarity purposes.
Mm-hmm. And I would say when we talk about migrants, we also include tourists and people who come here,
who've overstayed. Those who've overstayed.
Or
Absolutely.
who come here though and abuse our system while they're here.
100%.
Because they take
lots of them.
advantage of human trafficking. They buy illegal drugs. They buy guns and ship them overseas.
But those aren't migrants. Those are illegal aliens. They're criminals.
No.
They're criminals.
They enter the United States as migrants, and they go and they party and they dirty our beaches, and there's a whole list of unintended positive and negative consequences of migration. So we
Lots of negatives.
talk about migrants. We're talking about certain people. And if you assume that every person in these homeless camps in New York are undocumented, that's just false.
I didn't say all of them, but I am saying a large number of them. I'm saying that we can't verify them. We have people coming from Angola. We have people coming from China. We have people coming from many nations that have not been vetted. We don't know who they are. We don't know who they claim to be. Some of these nations, they don't have documentation that can be verified. We have individuals, we have 140 known or suspected terrorists running around America right now with a summons for 3 years to show up in court, even though we know they're suspected terrorists and they're endangering the people. That comes from Secretary Mayorkas himself.
Very poorly right now. He's doing very poorly right now. We're doing a lot of complaining, but no solving. So here's the problem. There are at least 12 million migrants here who are not documented legally, right? At least 12 million, if not more.
Yes.
We know that that's a minimum number, and there's probably more, but we don't know. So we can't give an accurate number. We know it's at least 12 million, if not more. There is no way, to your point, Michael.
Well, what I do with
I'm going to Michael's point. Okay, they're illegal. Fine.
Yeah.
We don't have the bodies. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources to take care of them, meaning to physically go get them and throw them back out to their countries and send them on boats and ships and planes back over to their countries.
Sure we can.
Physically, no, we cannot.
Yes, we can. Oh, wait a minute. No.
We physically cannot.
Wait a minute. Hey, let's address that because everyone thinks of that. Well, first of all,
7 days a week.
Well, look, let's think about this for a second, because how do we get that done? It is achievable. And first, it requires that we close our borders. We stop welding open gates. Let's close the border, secure the border. As we do that, we then go start sweeping through the nation. We have large pockets. We can start in places like New York City.
Oh my God, kick it in
California.
That's scary to me. That's terrifying.
Where are your papers? Where are your papers?
We do this now.
God.
ICE does this now. This isn't new.
Shouldn't.
This isn't something different.
And you're picked up by
I'm not happy about ICE doing this.
Crime.
No, I have no problem with them. I have no problem with ICE as they are doing their job, as they have been doing their job for decades, going around and rounding up the illegal aliens and deporting them. And we can deport them. And you know what? Great business opportunities come from deporting even more of them. I'm happy with that. Let's have more shuttle planes flying them out.
I have an idea for you. See if you like this idea. Because we're going to have to get them out in mass, why don't we put them all on trains and send them to camps?
You're funny.
And then the people who are in the camps, they can all wear armbands that show they're on ICE.
Mike, you're complaining.
We'll do that. So a bunch of people with armbands will put them all on trains.
You're funny.
And send them to camps.
You're funny, Larry.
That's
funny, Larry.
That's what you're saying.
Step off.
No, it's not. Okay, you're going to the extremist.
Too much money on migrants, but let's pay and create a whole business structure based off of finding them and shipping them back to their countries.
You know what? I'm trying to make an industry.
To do that.
I'm trying to recoup some of the losses. I'm trying to find a way for American citizens to profit off of this burden that has been put on them unfairly and unwillingly.
There is a zero net value for migration right now. They pay more taxes than they take out of the system.
No, they don't.
Yes, and I wanted to make a plug.
No, they don't.
That I use. Oh, you can't really see it because the blur.
Hold on, I couldn't see it. It was. Hold on, there we go. Yes, now.
So it matches your color combo, but it's called The Most Common Arguments Against Immigration and Why They Are Wrong by Alex Norwashta, and it's funded by the Cato Institute and libertarianism.org.
Mm-hmm.
And I have these at all of our hostels.
Sure.
To talk about, because we do know that there's a zero net value. As much as they pay into the system is the same amount as they take. There literally is where it's not costing us a bunch of money, and it would cost us even less money if we just let them in and gave them access to the workforce and told them no benefits for 5 years, which is currently the practice. If you get a green card, you can't take any type of government benefits for 5 years. So then we would only be gaining from them being here. And then we could close down all of the mass detention centers, all of the money we spend on and sending them back to their countries. Like, it just seems
let's just not let them in the first place.
The government and the money we're paying for migration, then that would be the step we would need to take.
I think Michael likes the armband idea, though. I'm just saying.
It sounds like it to me, because when he was saying we better go out house to house and knock
down
doors, are you going to knock down my
door? Now you're fear-mongering me. You're using the straw man.
Funny.
You're using a straw man on me to fear-monger, because I never said that, nor did I intend that. I'm talking about the process we already do, which no one describes as, well, maybe some on the left describe it as Gestapo moves, but that's not what is happening. And that's what I'm talking about doing, is just doing what we already do.
To go into illegal markets to smuggle themselves, putting them closer and closer to people who are smuggling drugs, who are sex trafficking people. Why are
if we want to focus on slavery,
for what? For fear.
You know what? If we wanted to really focus on slavery, if that was really such a big issue, because there's more slaves in the world today than there have ever been in the history of mankind. So that is a problem across many nations, amongst many continents, that has never been resolved. And if we were actually honestly looking to deal with that, then one, we would call it slavery, not human trafficking. Two, we would have the notebook from Epstein's Island. We'd be able to look at that and have some of the names. We don't care about that specifically. That's a separate issue. You're telling me that's, well, you know, again, fear-mongering, that's a straw man. That's not what we're talking about.
And powerful elite people.
What?
Of course we're not going to address human trafficking. Where would all these politicians get their underage girls if we didn't have sex trafficking?
I am absolutely against. I have absolutely nothing. I'm not a fan of pedophiles. I am not a fan of any of the abuses of human trafficking in any way. I am more than happy to defeat that. But guess what? Part of the process to be able to stop that, or at least to hinder it, since it's a worldwide problem, which means it's not going away tomorrow, is secure the border and then start weeding through the people we have here, both in vetting them and in removing them. And yes, let's deport them. They are criminals. Let's get our system and our house in order.
the problem here is, and this is the thing that people, I think most people aren't getting, the elites want them. They would never accept. So even if you were able to get your trains and camps, you would not be able to put it to place. They wouldn't want to do it. And the reason is, look, the farmers, particularly big farms, they want these workers. Hospitality, they want these workers. Bars, restaurants, they're all part of hospitality. They want these workers.
We need roofers.
Carpenters, thank you. Yes.
All these construction workers.
Yes, you can't get a house built without half of your team being illegal. And I don't
Actually,
mean that's
you can't.
Aggressive, but
not
it won't
Michigan,
happen.
You can't.
It will not happen in New York State. No, it will
Well,
not.
wait a minute.
It will not happen.
Wait a minute. Part of the reason why they're going to these individuals is because of the regulations being put in many of these states that have overburdened and overextended the cost of all of these, many of these services.
They still have to pay those permits. It doesn't matter if your employees are illegal.
No, that isn't the reason. The reason is we don't have enough talent here.
Well, that's another problem.
Our youth does not go to the trades. Our youth waste their time in useless college degrees when they don't need to have college degrees.
Yes,
and epidemic.
Our youth there's been a dearth of labor.
Yep.
Skilled labor. We're talking about carpenters, electricians, machinists, 100%. And it's been going on for the last 5 to 10 years, and we're about to hit critical mass within the next 5 years. And yes, we have to start importing those individuals. But again, that doesn't mean that we would illegally allow people just to run across the border because we need more carpenters and machinists. There is a process to do this.
I'm saying the process, though, needs to be streamlined.
Yes.
So that every single person who's coming to the border is registered, tagged, location where they're going to be living, and then they're monitored. And if
you want to tag them like this?
If they commit a crime, it's better than rounding them up and shipping them to detention centers. Where
okay, so you just want to monitor them 24 hours a day with a little dog tag in their buttocks, so we can map them and they have zero privacy. Okay, that's an interesting idea. I'm not necessarily against it.
In the United States.
Huh?
We do that to all of our citizens. Do you have a smartphone? Do you know that anyone anywhere in the government who has enough security clearance can access your phone, your text messages?
I am aware of the GPS tracking, and I understand how to also take that off. But yeah, I understand that. But
yes.
let me go a little further.
Of letting in the migrants and just doing what we do to all of our citizens.
You know what? If you want to put out a bill that says we need to tag all of these illegal aliens, put a little tracker in their ass, I'm okay with that. But what I want to focus on is all of the plans that we're talking about, every single one of them. There are 2 elements to that. One, we need to close the border so that we can then institute a plan that isn't chaotic. The second thing is we need to take the politics out because there's an aspect of this we've missed, which is the path to citizenship, which is a political path, the political component, which is what we see with DACA and what's happening with that as it returns to the courts, as it's been struck or may be struck down yet again because it is unconstitutional. And that is another component that is making this complicated, that is making this difficult to resolve, because we have 2 opposing sides. We have one group of individuals who are saying we have to find any and every way we possibly can to turn these individuals from illegal aliens, from criminals, into American citizens, so they will then be indentured to us to vote for us. That's what we're seeing with Venezuela. 400,000 are now suddenly, magically, by the will of Joe Biden alone, decided that they can work in our nation, even though they're illegal, even though they have broken our laws, and they can now go out and work. And yes, that would be a benefit economically, but that isn't the purpose. The purpose, because 400,000 of them aren't going to change our economies, even in New York City. No. What we're looking at is that as a path to citizenship, to say, oh, since they are here, like DACA, they have kids now, they're stuck here, we can't get rid of them. That would be mean and cruel. Give them citizenship. There is a plan here. Part of the reason why we have such chaos. And that is the biggest impediment to resolving this issue, is getting our politicians in line. We have to secure the border. We have to get our politicians in line, and we have to make decisions. Some of them are not going to be popular, but they're effective. And I always believe in effective and efficient well over popularity. I don't care if people are pissed off. We are in a crisis.
Let me grab what Mr. Right, Anna Genesis says. He says, check out the Cloward-Piven strategy in regards to mass illegal immigration. I actually don't know what that is. Do either of you guys know what that is?
I haven't looked at it in a long time. I believe it's overwhelmed the system to cause crash, if I'm remembering the program properly.
Okay, so I guess that means that people believe they're trying to crash the system.
Yes,
I guess that makes sense. I could see that as a way of doing it. I think
that's a strategy that a lot of political right and left focus on doing. If we could just crash the entire system, then we could rebuild something new. But again, that comes.
I don't know anyone on the right who believes that, who wants to do that.
In the libertarian world, we call that collapsitarians. That's what we call
every political genre has these radicals who believe that if they just destroy the system by overwhelming it somehow and show how corrupt or wrong it is, that then they will be able to build whatever system they want and it will be better.
I think
I'm not familiar with anarchists on the right, but okay.
No. I think the right's doing in their way kind of right now, saying they'll shut the government down. Right? That's a form of that. We'll just shut the whole government down, let it all collapse. So I think you do have fringes in every group, right? The left, the right, libertarians too. I think we all have groups that just go, you know what, the system's so broken, burn it to the ground, and we'll just rebuild it because it's so broken. I do think there are some, and that might be true. That to me does not sound crazy. I think that could be a thing being done, because I agree with you, Charles. I think every group has that group of people who are like, who cares?
Yeah,
right?
I think the argument that Mike was making earlier is a common argument of like, oh, Democrats are really pro migrants and giving them citizenship because they just want more voters. But the thing about that argument that kind of I have a problem with is the fact that, okay, yes, they're letting them have citizens, but maybe if the right wouldn't ostracize them and try to criminalize them, then they wouldn't be so pushed into the Democratic wing. If both the right and the left allowed them access to, it would be based more on policy and not them feeling like they're being victimized by a specific.
But there's also a second piece though here to this, Charla. At the second generation are more conservative than first generation.
Yeah, I have loads of people who voted for Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Second generation, tend to move more towards the right than left. First generation tends to be more left, but second generation tends to move more towards the right, unless they're business owners. The vast majority of business owners move right. Entrepreneurs tend to move right, versus workers, generally speaking. So I'm not sure that either one of those is actually correct. I think those are stories being told, so we can both fight, right? Because Scott says this. He says she is right. Republicans are just as corrupt. I agree. I think both sides are absolutely using this, right? Like there's no tomorrow. Ted says it's everywhere. Rural Indiana has illegals. And that's my point. New York City is special in this specific case because of the rulings in the courts.
Because it's so hard for undocumented people to get legal pathways to be here.
Good.
There we go. Joe says Governor DeSantis abused Florida taxpayers into literally bringing migrants from Texas to Florida to send up north. Next year, he signs a bill into law making what he did illegal. That's actually funny. Is this what you're talking about? Are you talking about that this is what you mean?
Yeah, this is like this dynamic that keeps going back and forth. The Democrats ship homeless people out of their cities to rural communities all the time.
Yes.
Some of those people are undocumented. Some of those people are immigrants. But there's this big push by Republicans to push migrants into Democratic spaces and try to put that burden onto them. It's become such a political tool. And at the end of the day, it's the regular U.S. citizens and the migrants who suffer the most from this. Because
wait a minute. Why is it wrong? And I don't mean feelings, but why is it wrong that if we have states, let's go with states' rights, that part of the argument. If the state, such as Texas or Arizona, say, our system is overwhelmed, we do not want this rhetoric. We want to, as in Texas' case, put up buoys and barbed wire on the Texas border, which is their right to be able to do. And the fact that New York State and California and Illinois continue to put out this rhetoric that is pushed by the mainstream media saying, come on in, we're going to give you a 3-star hotel, we're going to pay $60,000 a year for you to live in America, we're going to even throw out American citizens to be able to take care of you, which is causing this wave of illegal aliens to overwhelm the system. And they're coming to Texas, and Texas never made that promise. I'm going to send you to who made the promise to you. I'm going to send you to the people who said they're a sanctuary city. They will violate regulations. They will violate laws to accommodate you. They asked for you. I didn't. I don't want the burden. And you know what? There's nothing wrong.
Red states. It's the same reason why big cities and blue states pay for the red states. Because we're one country and we have an obligation to take care of it.
But I'm okay with both of those. Like, I'm okay with ending both of those, right? I don't want blue states paying for red states or red states paying for blue states.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying, but that's the understanding of the common.
And I don't mind Texas sending the migrants to Illinois or New York either. I think that you're right, and I'm okay with it. Send them, right? New York City has been open for decades going, we want them, send them. All I'm saying is, if we're going to say that as a state, obviously, Mike, you're not saying that, right? You and I, New Yorkers, we're not saying that. But if we're going to say that as a state and as a city, and we have as a state, as a government, we've been saying that, we got to have a plan. And we got nothing. And what makes me angry is instead of us being angry at our leaders, and we're not as a state, like people aren't mad at Kathy Hochul about this, and they should, but they're not as a whole.
They should.
They're not mad even at Eric Adams. They're mad, believe it or not, at Joe Biden. They're mad at him. They're like, Joe's got to give us more money. And in fact, the mayor's saying it and the governor's saying it. They're not saying this is our fault for being knuckleheads and for screaming for them to come without any plan whatsoever. It's not our fault. It's Uncle Joe's fault because he didn't write us big enough checks.
And it never ends.
Be built this way at all, or that this should be allowed. What should be done is that we use optimization research as an optimization researcher and a logistics specialist, where we know exactly where the gaps are in our economy and strategically redistribute people based off of their area of expertise and skill set.
I'll be happy to do that for Americans.
I'm going to give you the actual answer that I've been talking about for 5 years, and no one wants to hear. But AOC touched it. She actually touched it. By the way, AOC is obviously watching my stuff because she's my congressperson. And Kathy Hochul used my talking points. I'm not joking. She used my talking points from my website when she took on her inaugurational speech. She used my talking points. So I know they're actually paying attention. So AOC heard what I said and my plan for 5 years, which is if you can't do it by to Michael's point, what I'm about to say should be on the border. But if it's New York State, I can't affect the border. I can only affect New York State. So when it comes to New York State, I agree with you, Charla. We should have that what you want. In the Bronx, and I say the Bronx, but I'm okay anywhere, we should set up one massive Ellis Island, and preferably two of them. Each one controlled by two separate companies. And the companies are, to your point, Charla, not government. They are recruitment companies. Two massive recruiting companies, two of them. Why? This way, if one is bad, they go to the other one. People can go to either one they want. You come to America, you come to New York State, you have to go to one of the Ellis Islands or you're illegal. If you go to one of the Ellis Islands, you're good. The Ellis Islands get a charter from the federal government, right, to say, look, if we walk down this road, the person becomes legal, whatever that road is. They create a roadmap for it. We do it already. We do it now in most states when it comes to inspecting your car, right? The government doesn't inspect your car. A local gas station or a repair shop inspects your car. They follow the rules of the government, and you get the government stamp. Follow the same concept in these Ellis Islands. These are recruiters.
I think you should also set up
literally are able. Hold on 1 second. Who are literally able to, like what you said, Charlotte. They literally are able to place people throughout the entire planet. Somehow they do it every single day. Thousands upon thousands of people every single day. Put them in these Ellis Islands. Do the whatever 2 weeks or whatever the time is. You make it like massive hotels. The government does not pay for it. Instead, the government leases the land out. So the government makes money off it, keeps Michael happy, no taxpayer dollars, right? So the government leases the land and makes money. And these people can charge people for it. And they can. They're making money now. They can charge the farmers who want the labor, who are now paying in the black market. They can charge the hotel, who's now put money in the black market, put it into the legal market. And the people who now, again, to Michael's point, who are paying coyotes, who have to pay coyotes. They can pay these people. They'll put an actual office in Mexico or in Guatemala or in Belarus or wherever the people are, and they can pay those people, and those people will legally traffic them, legally bring them to the states. This could be done easily in
Can
the
be
private
done.
sector, costs no money.
It can be
100%.
done.
That's the answer.
And in addition to that, we need to have a legal team set up so that certifications from different countries transfer to our certification process, and testing centers so that doctors from other countries can come here and practice. Because I know
100%.
doctors who are now packing groceries at the grocery store when we actually need them for their skills.
100%.
Well, their skills are in question.
Nurses who are literally baristas.
And
I know nurses who are baristas.
You know, there's a reason why we have the higher standards that many other countries do not, and therefore that's the reason why. Now we may need to tweak that. That is the reason why. No, the qualifications. No, it's about standards and it's about quality.
There are public higher education institutions who lobby against that because they want them to have to go back to
and there are more that actually accept it and understand the credentials that are not that are lacking in other nations.
They have to go through just as much training as any of
100%.
our.
No, not necessarily the same.
Okay.
You can go through 5 years of training without being right.
I'm gonna give you a good example of this. Literally, Cuba makes a huge chunk of money by literally leasing their doctors out. I'm not joking. That's a thing that Cuba does. Like, they make a ton of money
around the world
because they lease their doctors out. Their Cuban doctors are amazing. And you might not think they are. You would be wrong. They're amazing. They're great doctors. They want them all over the world. If Cuban doctors sucked, there'd be no money. People wouldn't want to literally lease them out. But they do. Tons of countries have amazing doctors. And here's the most important piece. We have a doctor shortage in America. I would rather take a mediocre doctor than no doctor. I'll take one who could learn something and get better over having no health care. I'll take
testing
that.
systems that could test their knowledge. This isn't
Considering-
rocket science. Like,
Considering we're talking about 1.8 million doctors, that's the actual shortage, and it's projected to go even higher. That's a lot of people that we're talking about. We're talking about tens of millions of individuals that would be affected by it. So I'd like to make sure we have some grasp on that. But we're stretching away from the initial thought here, which is about the illegal immigration, which is about these criminals and the crimes they've committed and the impact they negatively are having on us. And as unpopular as it may be with the news media and with some people, and it may offend people's feelings, these are the core things we have to get to. And again, I have to reiterate, the first thing we need to do is secure our borders as best as is possible. Nothing is perfect here, but we have to do that, and we have to commit to a plan, whatever that plan may be, but we have to commit to a plan and stop this infighting. And we have to remember that the federal government, in the meantime, while we're doing the infighting, while we're going through the courts, we're seeing them constantly usurp more and more power. DACA was created as an overreach of government power by Obama after telling the American people 20 times in 4 years that he didn't have the power. We have the Biden administration backing up this overreach of power that they know does not exist. They don't have it. They usurp Congress. We are seeing this. This is the ultimate problem. And the ultimate burden of illegal immigration as it exists right now isn't necessarily monetary. It's what it's happening, what it's doing to our political structure, and it's corrupting our system, which is then filtering out into everything else.
All right, let me grab a couple of comments before we wrap this up. I don't want to keep Charla any longer. I always promise to get out early, then I never do. So I'm trying to be good here. So if I can grab this. Jason says, so you admit the government won't solve problems, but you need government to carry out your solution. Jason, what I would say, I don't know who that was towards. I would say, no, I don't want government to do it. As I said, my solution is a private sector solution. My solution is a professional solution that gets people working to the best of their ability. Joel says, deportation is not sending them to the showers. Joel, I was teasing Mike. I love Mike. I was teasing him because it was funny. I just thought it was a funny joke. I would never assume Mike to be that way at all. If anyone took it that way, let me apologize publicly. I was just teasing him. That's all I was. So I did not think it was the same. I was just teasing him.
I didn't take you. I don't think you were serious. I didn't think you were serious about it.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was just teasing. That's all that was. I was just teasing. That's all. Okay. And then Joe goes, I should start learning German. Well, I do speak it a little bit of already. You see the flag here. So I'm ready. So if it happens, I guess I'll be good. I'll be one of the first ones. We'll be fine. So it'll be okay. So yes. Let me see if I grab just a couple more before we go. Let's see here. Joe goes on to say, overreach of power is federal government regulating migration. Ooh, they're all overreach. I agree. A lot of that's overreach. I agree. So anyway, I'm sorry, I yapped away a bunch. Guys, before we wrap this up, anything you want to wrap it up with, Mike?
No, at the moment. Believe it or not, I'm lost. No, not at the moment.
Okay, good. Charla, anything you want to wrap it up with?
No, I'm good too, Larry.
You want to pump that book again and maybe your Instagram or something?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Venture Novelist, and this is a common book that I give to all of our residents here at Emoja House. It's The Most Common Arguments Against Immigration and Why They Are Wrong by Alex Northresta. Hopefully I said that right. But it's just a really clear, succinct 10 top 10 myths of migration and the facts.
Ooh.
There we go.
I did think of something real quick. It's everybody take a chance. It's on almost every social media outlet. I made a AI, almost 100% AI music video that's called Rend, R-E-N-D. Just look up No Soundbites Allowed and Rend. Check it out. It's 38 seconds. Everyone can do it. Tell me what you think because I'm working with AI. So it's very interesting.
There we go. Guys, if you like what you're saying, please like this. I know I didn't say it much, but please like it. It really does matter. We were so busy yapping, I didn't bother doing the commercial part, so I'm doing it now. Also, remember, follow these lovely people. Please follow Michael on MV Consult on Twitter, and please follow Charla on Instagram at Venture Novelist. It really does matter. If you haven't yet and you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this now. Every retweet matters. Everyone does matter to grow this the best of our ability. Guys, thank you so much for being with me today. I will be live tweeting the Republican debate tonight at 9 p.m. So if you want to watch my Twitter, I'll be live tweeting that. Tomorrow, I will have Donnie the Don on talking about her new system she's working on with vices and stuff like that. Probably interesting stuff. And I'll be having a special show on Friday at 7 p.m. I hope to see you all very soon.